My mother-in-law, she starts to berate my humble background, and then she tries to kick me out of the house, but then I realize, oh, this was all an excuse so she could sneak her young boyfriend in, who, by the way, is a heck of a lot younger than she is, and she didn't want me to notice it. Well, guess what? I found out.
Hey guys, my story is pretty much the title, so I'm going to get straight to it. I need some really good advice, so please, if you're just here to troll, scroll away. Long story short, I, along with my husband, just got kicked out of my house by my mother-in-law. We don't really have a place to go, so we're staying at a friend's house while we figure out a way to solve this. My friend has been an angel. We've known each other for years, and she's really supportive of us. But we can't stay here for long. It's a one-bedroom apartment, and we're sleeping on the living room floor. We might have to move out by the end of the week, stay at a cheap hotel or something. We're still looking for a place to rent, but you know that's usually a very long and tiring process. Oh, I'm also pregnant. 8 months along. The morning sickness and the headaches are very difficult to handle. So yeah, I'm in an extremely stressful situation, to say the least. So a bit of context about my family, right? I've never really got along well with my mother-in-law. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm pretty straightforward of a woman. I'll admit that at times I say things that people don't want to hear, and I guess that rubs my mother-in-law the wrong way. But I've never done anything terribly wrong or unforgivable to her. The biggest fight we've had before this one big feud where she kicked me out, was about what color the kitchen cabinet should be. I told her that I thought the color she picked was ugly. Yes, I used that exact word, and she was mad at me for like a week or so. I ended up apologizing and we still went through with her color. Most of our fights started and ended like that. I mean, nothing too serious. Or so I thought. Things came to a head when I found out I was pregnant. Instead of celebrating, my mother-in-law tells my husband that she wanted me out of my apartment. Citing some flimsy excuse about being too old to look after my baby, I found that to be an absolute joke of a reason because I would never ask her to do anything for me, or change any part of her lifestyle just because I'm pregnant. I have no idea how she came to that conclusion, but the bottom line was that she was sick of me and she just wanted me out. Here's where things get a little interesting. Being the straightforward woman that I am, I confronted her. I sat her down and calmly asked her if I've done anything to offend her in any way. I even apologized to her before she said anything, just in case I had said something that rubbed her in the wrong way. After all, I've always known that we're not exactly compatible together, but at the very least, we should still be honest with each other for her son's sake, right? Apparently, she did not agree. She refused to speak about it and even left the room at one point, when I was getting impatient. She said that she would only speak to someone she could trust, which was my husband. Let's call him James. So of course I asked James to speak to his mom, but unfortunately they only made things worse. They had a huge fight, but after that my husband refused to tell me the details. It wasn't until 2 days ago, when we were already living with my friend and I'd grown sick and tired of his avoidance, that he told me what happened. Turns out he had a good reason to want to hide it from me. His mother was accusing me of being a gold digger. Let me explain our financial situation, so you can fully understand how ridiculous this accusation is. James and I are running a restaurant together. We're co-workers. We both work very hard to get to where we are today. My husband is the chef, and I'm the manager and accountant. He takes care of the kitchen. I take care of the front of house. So yeah, he literally can't run the thing without me. This is not a dig against stay-at-home moms or whatever. The point is I work. I make money with my husband, so full stop. Of course, I started taking time off work last month because I'm pregnant. That seemed to trigger something in my mother-in-law, because she seemed especially annoyed with literally everything I've done since then. It's like she's mad that she had to see me more often. Guys, I really don't know what her dealio is, and honestly, I don't care. Taking care of myself and the baby in my womb was already very time-consuming, so I didn't really notice the signs that her annoyance was going to turn into hatred really fast. Anyways, we're in a tough place financially, because the restaurant had to close down for a year during COVID. We spent most of our savings during this time, and since it was extremely hard for both of us to get a job, we didn't have a lot of skills that could turn into online gigs, and we did make a few bad decisions, but I'm not going to get into that now. The point is, we just managed to get back on our feet at the beginning of this year, which is also why we decided to have a baby. Obviously, we did not expect our mother-in-law to react this way. So, back to the story. My mother-in-law told my husband that I've been trying to take advantage of him the whole time. She said that women as young as I am only marry older men for money. Yes, we have a 9-year age difference, and I do come from a humble background, but that's absolutely not why I married him. My husband and I love each other, and we've never had issues with an age gap. What makes this even more ridiculous is that my mother-in-law was in the exact same situation years ago, when she was in her 20s. She left home to marry my late father-in-law, who was 14 years older than her. Granted, her family was pretty abusive, but that's a story for another day. When my father-in-law passed away, he left all of his money for her. So I'm pretty sure if there is a gold digger in this house, it's not me. Sorry, not sorry. Anyways, with no legal claim to our home or any financial support from my husband's side, we're left with nothing. Our savings will probably run out in a few months if we don't come up with anything new, and with the baby coming, I'm just under a lot of stress. My husband has been doing his best to calm me down, but honestly, we're in a pretty dire situation, and it's difficult to remain calm right now. I'm also mad at my husband for letting his mom kick us out of the house. I don't know, I'm kind of mad at everybody lately, but it's his mom, right? He could have protested and knocked some sense into her mind, but no. Anyways, ranting about my husband is not why I'm here. Stuck in this troublesome situation, I just want an outsider's opinion on the whole thing, so I'm here venting my heart out to strangers, asking for advice. Now, my question for you is this. Should I sue my mother-in-law or something? Isn't it so unfair that she could just kick us out like that? She doesn't seem to care if we live or die. I'm pregnant with her grandchild, for goodness sake. This is just so messed up, I don't know what to do. What would you do if you were me? Updates. Number 1. Hey guys, first of all, a huge thank you to everyone who responded to the post. I didn't expect that it would blow up, and with that said, many of you made some seriously wrong assumptions about me and my family, so I feel the need to clean things up. Some of you think that calling my mother-in-law out on her past was too much, but it was not what she did with her own marriage that I had a problem with. It was what she did to me. She blamed me for being a gold digger, while she herself married a rich older man. The age gap between her and her husband was even bigger than the one between me and my husband. Don't you see the double standard here? If you don't, I'm calling out your BS. Sorry. Anyways, it's been over 2 months and a lot of things have changed. I actually have a lot of good news to share with y'all. I gave birth to a really healthy baby girl. And my husband and I are so happy to welcome her to his life. I feel like the birth of my daughter has pulled me back to a reality a little. My husband has been so happy and motivated. He threw himself into work, determined to build a stable life for our growing family. We've also managed to find a good place to rent now. Another piece of good news is that the restaurant is doing well, and our most loyal customers were supportive when they found out about my pregnancy. A lot of them started tipping twice as much than they usually do, and spreading the word so more people could give us a try. You know, a young busser even offered to help us with social media marketing, and it's also going pretty well. It's amazing how much things have changed in such a short span. Now, I'm not writing this update just to let you know that we've been doing better. I still have a lot of problems with my mother-in-law, and despite the good news, things between me and her are only getting worse. So guys, the real curveball came when I returned to our apartment to collect some belongings, and accidentally found a teenager sleeping on our couch. My mother-in-law did not know that I had an extra pair of keys. She made us return our keys when we moved, and I knew the time when my mother-in-law usually had yoga, so I decided to just go in there myself. I didn't feel like talking to her or asking for her permission. I know this is borderline trespassing, but I guess I was too tired to care. Anyways, when I saw the teenager there, I freaked out. He was shirtless, wearing a pair of pants, and could easily be a student uniform. I can't be sure that he's a teenager, of course, but he seemed really young. And there was also a backpack right next to him, and I could not get a clear look at his face. But I'd say, anyways, I didn't want him to know that I was there. So I quietly got out of there as fast as I could. See, here's my problem. I, went back home and talked to my husband about this, and he didn't care, saying he was probably an employee at the restaurant who did not have a place to stay, and I was taken back. If he's an employee at the restaurant, I should, know who he is. After some digging, I discovered that he's been hired, as a host during my absence, and he's been working part-time at our restaurant since then. Well, that explained why I didn't recognize him. The worst part is that my husband told me that he seems strangely loyal to my mother-in-law. My gut feeling tells me that something is fishy about this. My husband, on the other hand, denies the idea of anything terrible happening. But it's his mom we're talking about. After all, I don't blame him for being in denial. I don't know what I should do now. I feel the responsibility to get involved. But part of me is worried that it's just some hormones acting up. Plus, I don't know. I've just had a baby. Maybe I should just focus on her instead of minding other people's businesses. I'm not sure what to do now. The only thing I could think of was how much this teenager's life might be at stake if I didn't do anything. What if something terrible is going on and nobody has the guts to suspect my mother-in-law? What a terrible scenario to consider. Update number 2. Hey guys, well, I've decided to write this post to update you guys on everything that's been going on and happening in the last few months. Things unraveled rather quickly, and I did not even have a chance to catch my breath. So, getting right to the point, I got involved. I went to the restaurant and spoke directly to the boy. He's 19 years of age. He's recently taken a semester off school because he could not afford it. Aside from working at the restaurant, he's also has to look after his brother, who has a lung condition and needs a lot of care. You know, this immediately raised a red flag for me. A, he's too vulnerable. B, he needs money, and my mother-in-law is the one that has money. Obviously, guys, he didn't say a one word, not a bad thing at all, about my mother-in-law. Duh. He was pretty timid, almost alert when I approached him. I didn't manage to get any valuable information from him except for an address to his parents' house. He doesn't live with them, but he was willing to give it to me because I told him that I need his guardian's mailing address to do some tax paperwork. Yeah, I lied, but obviously for a good reason. You know, who cares? Don't come for me. So I drove to his parents' place, and here's where this story really broke my heart. His parents were both alcoholics who live off the state pension, and their dying father's social benefits because he was a veteran. They don't even remember having 2 struggling sons at first. And when I reminded them of that poor kid that they had abandoned, they didn't seem to care. In fact, they don't even know how their son managed to send them some money almost every single week. Another red flag here. I had a feeling something was wrong because how is it even possible that the boys even make enough money to do that? The teenage pay from the restaurant could not even come close to cover the rent alone. I don't know if the brother is working, but the medical bills must be pretty difficult to handle. Plus, the fact that he has to take a break from school, I mean, come on. Nothing is even adding up here at all. I'll have to clarify myself at this point that I'm doing all this investigation without letting my husband know. I would drop my baby at my friend's house and ask her to help for a few hours while I drive around doing this stuff, and you can call me crazy all you want. Whatever. But I'm not the type of woman who would allow any kind of a shady business to happen to people around me. I might not know the boy very well, but I do know my mother-in-law, and she's been extremely unexpected. This has taught me to expect the worst from her, but of course it's hard to gather information from her. Still, I was determined to figure out what is going on exactly. So here's where things get a whole lot messier than I could have ever anticipated. Somehow my mother-in-law found out what I was doing, and I don't know how. I think she must have been monitoring the cameras at the restaurant or something, I'm not sure, but she found out. Well, technically, she's still the owner of the restaurant because it used to belong to her late husband, and he did leave it to her. The only reason why we're running it is because she just doesn't have the skills and it would fall apart, so she needs us to keep it alive. We still make sure that she gets her part of the share, though, so it's not like we're stealing. I'm explaining the situation in great detail like this because I want you to understand the influence that she has on our lives. She called my husband and asked him if he knew what I was doing behind his back. At first, she tried to make it sound like, well, I was having an affair or something, saying all this shady stuff like, they seem so close, or I think she asked for his address at some point. Guys, I'll admit that I wasn't careful enough to think about the fact that she still has access to the cameras. I guess she just went to check out the footage as soon as she heard that I went back to the restaurant, even when I was still on break to take care of my baby. Oh, and get this. She told my husband that I'm a terrible mother for doing shady things as soon as I'm done with the pregnancy. Can you believe the audacity inside of this woman? I mean, come on. My husband seemed very upset, and he said that we're gonna have a long talk as soon as he gets home. But I'm gonna stand my ground. I'm even thinking about filing a lawsuit against my mother-in-law. I can't stand this woman anymore. Update number 3. Hey guys, I just want to hop on here to update everybody on what happened the night my husband came back from talking to his mom. Sorry for taking so much time. I didn't think that it would take this many months to have some time and sit down to write this. Long story short, it's been a lot worse than it seemed. So when my mother-in-law found out about my plan, she was absolutely enraged. She had a huge fight with my husband where she asked him to get a divorce. Yep, you heard it right. She didn't even care that we just had a baby. Hell, she even, never once held the baby. It's as if she doesn't want to claim me, so she doesn't claim my daughter either. At this point, I'm not even surprised at what she's capable of doing. My husband took that even really bad. I think he didn't expect his mom to be this kind of person. I guess he's always known that something is wrong, but she's still his mom, after all. He wants to think that she's a good person even when she's not. But it wasn't until the event that he started questioning everything. It seems like all she's ever cared about is money. When she feels threatened by someone, she doesn't care if they're family. Maybe that's why she doesn't like me. She saw me getting married to an older man coming from a humble background, myself, and she just immediately saw herself in me. Sorry, but I would never, ever in a million years turn out like her. Anyways, my husband, of course, refused to do as she said. He'd be crazy to say anything different. So she claimed back the restaurant and kicked us out, the one business we were pouring our heart and souls into. Things were really tough. For the first 2 months, we've spent all our savings, and it was difficult finding new jobs that pay as well as running a successful restaurant, but we figured out a way. My husband became a line cook at another restaurant, something close to our place, so he doesn't have to commute too much. The pay is just enough for food and rent, but we're making do. I went back to work and got a job at a hostel as their account manager. We can afford a part-time nanny, and we hired a college student from a nearby campus, and her English is not that good, so her rate is more affordable. Luckily, she's great with my kid. She speaks Spanish to her often, so we've been joking about how our baby is going to be bilingual. As, all in all, we were determined to make work while staying in the industry, because that's where we were really good at. Somehow, I have trust that our opportunity will arise and we will claim back what is ours. Update number 4. Hey guys, wow, I did not think I would hop here just 2 weeks after the last update, but I have some very, very crazy news, and oh boy. So apparently, after finding out that we were fired, the boy was terrified, but more motivated to tell the truth. Just a few days after the post I wrote, he texted me. He was really vague on the text, but he asked for us to meet up with each other. He took a bus, and it took him a few hours to get to my local coffee shop. I think he got lost at some point, but he was very determined to make it happen nevertheless. When I saw him, my heart immediately broke. The boy had lost nearly 15 pounds during the months that I have not seen him. He sat down and he started to talk. He didn't even wait for me to ask. He admitted to having an inappropriate relationship with my mother-in-law. But only because that's the only way he could afford the hospital bills, the rent, the food, everything. So yeah, my mother-in-law is basically a criminal, but it gets a lot worse. The boy's mental health has been deteriorating ever since my husband and I were fired. He didn't realize this at first, but he did feel safe with us and felt like we could somehow help him. despite being family to the abuser. He refused to meet up with my mother-in-law, so she came up with even more malicious ideas. It turns out my mother-in-law has been using other teenagers to do her bidding, exploiting their vulnerability for her own gain. She would ask the boy to introduce her to his friends. The ones he met on the streets are usually just as broke as he is. She threatened him like he was a criminal, telling him how she would cut him off and leak his sensitive information to the school so he could never go back and graduate, and I'll tell you right now, that boy was terrified. I've decided I'm going to help this teenager. I am. I'm going to help the teenager sue her for exploitation and abuse. We didn't have the money to really do it, to be honest with you guys, so I contacted his parents and asked them to pay. Obviously, they turned us down. It's ridiculous how little they care about their own son. What's even more bizarre is that they even threatened to sue me and my husband if something were to happen to their boy if he stopped sending them money. I talked to my husband and we agreed to do the right thing. We take out a loan, determined to put an end to this madness, and the boy and his brother are staying with us. We've blocked every way of contact so my mother-in-law should not have any idea what's going on, and we're preparing for a lawsuit. This is going to be a long fight. Final update. This wraps it all up. Hey guys, thank you for still checking in on me. I can't believe it's been 2 long years. I'm here, I'm well, I'm alive. I do have an update for you. It's short, my last one. Suing my mother-in-law was a really risky move. You see, it was the right thing to do. We took out a huge loan, which was surely a financial burden at the time, but it paid off when the court ruled in our favor. There was more than enough evidence to convict her. It was as if she didn't try to cover her tracks. Even her lawyer was hopelessly looking at us when she pleaded not guilty. The woman insisted on being self-righteous even in the last moments of her freedom. I'll never be able to understand her. Anyways, she was sent to jail. We might never see her again, and I'm going to make sure that my daughter will never have to. The court awarded us the ownership of the restaurant along with all the money and assets my late father-in-law left for his wife. With justice served, my husband and I finally have the means to raise our baby in peace. We used our newfound resources to not only support our own family, but also send the teenagers to college, giving them a chance at a better future. He later filed for a restraining order against his own parents, who neglected him for several years, and of course, we became the biggest support throughout his whole ordeal. Unfortunately, his brother passed away last year. We all knew that it was going to happen at some point, but it was all really tough. Nevertheless, it was a peaceful goodbye. We made sure he did not have to go through any more pain, plus he got to spend the last month of his life right next to his brother, who's a proud college student now. Anyways, that's pretty much it. Thank you for tuning in.